connected TV has a really important place in the UK landscape. The recent data out of Ofcom, for example, showed groups of consumers, in some cases looking at some of the younger cohorts, over 20% of consumers have now effectively opted out of watching broadcast TV. Their method of consumption has moved to streaming. So CTV is now filling a really important gap of capturing that attention from that group on what has long been proven to be the most effective branding screen in the house. So connected TV, therefore, has got a big job to do for advertisers, and I think it's why it's getting a lot more attention in terms of just the way it's understood, the research going into how people view, the way it's traded, and the volumes that will be going through the trading systems for connected TV. And then really importantly and excitingly for the decade ahead is really around its effectiveness and how it builds on that long tradition of the way TV has behaved and performed for advertisers, and actually builds on that moving forward. Roku believes that by the end of this decade, we will see all TV being streamed and therefore all TV advertising being streamed. So it is a really exciting time in the UK.
That's really interesting, Mike. So, Mike, tell us a bit about how Roku partners with broadcasters and video businesses in the UK to facilitate the development of this new market.
Sure. So actually, some of the very first deals that Roku does when it goes into a new market is with content players, with broadcasters in this case. So if you look at a Roku system in the UK, actually some of the first content partners you'll see on there will be the BBC, it'll be ITV, Channel 4, My5, UK TV, etc. So we're really acting as a distribution platform in that instance to ensure that even those consumers who are maybe not going through traditional pay TV boxes or actually have Roku embedded as the OS within their television, they're still seeing all of that amazing public service broadcaster and ad supported content that we're very lucky to have in the UK. Secondly, we help with monetization. So part of the deals we do for fair value exchange with our content partners often involves monetization of inventory and sharing of some of that inventory. So again, we work on that. Outside of maybe some of the bigger organizations who actually have their own apps, we also act essentially as a way of distributing content within the Roku channel and on the Roku platform for content players who are looking to, again, get that content into streaming environments, but maybe don't have the resources or it isn't in their strategy to build up their own app presence. So there's a multitude of different ways that Roku as a distribution platform really supports the breadth of content that's now available to consumers in the UK.
And tell us a bit about how you work with agencies and with organizations like Finecast.
Sure. So again, if we go back to the point mentioned at the very top, we've got this increasing appetite for streaming. We now see from our recent streaming decade report, 9 in 10 households are now streaming. That's now more than there are pay TV households in the UK. And so with that comes really the attention from media buyers who need to understand how that impacts, how that pattern of behavior impacts the way that they've traditionally reached those consumers, and streaming is now a really big part of what they need to consider to reach them in future. So when we think about the buy side, it's really around how does Roku make the inventory from our partners and also the Roku channel, our own licensed and original content destination within the platform. How do we make that inventory available to buyers and surface it in ways that is easy for them to transact? And actually Finecast is a really valuable partner for us in the UK. Obviously it represents a huge pool of demand coming out of the Group M agencies, and they have the targeting technology, the addressability that allows those brands to really extend into the audiences they want, and we're very pleased to be able to partner with them to deliver those audiences at scale within the Roku platform.
Now, connected TVs are helping to make television far more data enabled. Why is the TV data ecosystem so important to the future of this market in your view?
I think it if we have a look at the way that ad spend has changed over the last 10 years, we've seen a decrease in the amount of money that's been spent on TV and the share of total budgets gone to TV in favor of maybe some of the biggest platforms and walled gardens, the Facebooks and Googles, etc. of the world. Lots of this has been driven by a performance focus and this ability to bring data into those ecosystems, target audiences maybe more effectively than targeting has been able to do in television. And so what we really feel with connected TV is we can bring the kind of the brains, that targeting brains, back onto the very big screen, but with still the creative beauty of the television, the ad creative options that exist on that screen, and the scale that TV has when you combine the best of linear, of broadcast, with the increasing ad-supported streaming options that are out there. So we're probably in a world where we're never going to go back to this idea of less data. There's always going to be more data that people want around performance of advertising. And connected TV now allows broadcasters and platforms to really deliver at the scale that the walled gardens have looked to do beforehand, but arguably with a far greater creative canvas in front of them.
That's really interesting. So Mike, peering into your crystal ball, how do you see the market developing over the next 3 years? Are there big milestones or predictions you have about the world in 2025?
I think for us, really, the milestone's probably a little bit later with the streaming decade, this idea of all TV and therefore all TV ads being streamed. But I think in the medium term, if we're talking about that 2025 horizon, I think there'll be a few things that you'll see. The first one will be a proper evolution of the trading systems, because I think there's a TV trading ecosystem in the UK that is more set up around the old linear model of distribution and consumption. And increasingly, as we've seen this really rapid shift in consumer behavior, that will evolve because it's being driven by smart marketers and their agencies who need to keep up and ensure that those audiences, many of them very, very valuable cohorts, are still being addressed. And I think secondly to that, but very much in line with it, because it's coming from the same people, will be the demands around measurement and accountability, the transparency that can really only exist with third-party experts involved. And that's why it's very interesting to watch initiatives like Project Origin, driven by ISBA and the agencies and platforms participating in that, because I think this will be something that, as we look into the 3-4 years' time, is actually very likely to be a cross-media measurement solution encompassing CTV that genuinely allows marketers to really understand not just the reach and resonance, but overall effectiveness of advertising in terms of performance and results.
Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. It'll be fascinating to see this happening over the next few years. Appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, John.
Cheers, Mike.